I never once thought about boiling maple syrup for any reason whatsoever ever before, but I was recently reminded of a brownie that was sold at my older brother's high school concert that we would attend many years ago. And after remembering how delicious we all thought they tasted, I thought I would take a crack at developing my own little recipe for it. So using the power of the internet, I came up with a recipe that I think does it really well, and I really enjoyed it. The brownie recipe here is just a variation of the same brownie recipe that I've been using for the past few months, just mixed with some maple syrup frosting that I've made. So we start with 2 sticks of butter and about a cup of chocolate chips. I use semi-sweet, but you are welcome to use dark chocolate or milk chocolate or whatever you might prefer. Into the microwave it goes for a minute and a half. When you take it out, let it sit for 3 minutes just to cool it down so you don't burn any of the next ingredients that go into it. After fumbling with your camera for too long, whisk together the butter and chocolate chips. Next goes in a cup and a half of white granulated sugar. I only had a cup and a quarter on hand, but I actually found that it works out really well because of the maple syrup frosting is full of sugar in of itself, so it evens out really well and you still get a good sweet to it. Then goes in 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. I'm using dark, then whisk all together to combine. Added 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Then 1 teaspoon of salt, and then just quickly combine that before adding in eggs. 3 large eggs go into the mixture, and then whisk and combine fully until they are fully incorporated. Sift in 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour on top. Realize you forgot to buy a bigger bowl again, even after making this recipe for over a year, and that somehow all your ingredients still barely fit into the bowl, and add in and sift 1/3 cup of heavy dark cocoa powder. Use a rubber spatula and fold the flour and cocoa powder into the rest of the mixture. You can try and use an electric mixer to make this whole brownie recipe, but I had never had really good luck with it, and it just kind of spews flour everywhere, but your luck may vary. Either way you do it, it's going to look like there's way too much flour and cocoa powder for the rest of the mixture, but trust me, just keep going at it. It's going to all come together and be really fully combined. Add in an extra half cup of chocolate chips to the mixture if you want, doesn't really matter. It's all up to you and your personal preference. Grab a 9x9 square baking pan, spray it down with cooking oil to grease it up, or if you have parchment paper, spray down just the bottom of it and line it with parchment paper because it takes taking the brownies out of the oven much easier than trying to cut them out by hand. Oops, don't want to leave anybody else behind. This goes into a 350-degree oven for 35 to 40 minutes or until you can insert a toothpick into the center of it and it comes out clean with minimal crumbs. While the brownies are slightly cooling down, let's go ahead and make the maple frosting for the top. I didn't really think that boiling maple syrup was a viable solution, but I gave it a shot and it works really well to my surprise. And I didn't even think that maple syrup was really something that would boil until it was too hot to handle. But I mean, hey, look at that. It's boiling. Nice little zoom on my new phone that you can check out the review for too if you want. It only took a few minutes of just shy of medium heat to get this up to a roaring boil. After it gets up to a boil, leave it boiling for about 5 minutes to reduce it. You originally add 3/4 of a cup of maple syrup to this, but you're trying to reduce it down to about a half of a cup. I didn't let it reduce enough, and you'll see why it became a bit of an issue later on, but it still tasted good, but just give it some time to reduce to about half of a cup. Once it's reduced, remove it from the heat. Once you remove it, add in 1/4 of a cup of butter, which is about half a stick. And then 2 tablespoons of cream or milk. I used cream. Milk might give you a thinner frosting if that is what you prefer. Let the butter fully melt before you whisk together to combine all 3 of these ingredients. Look how smooth that looks. It's going to taste really good. Take 1 1/2 cup of powdered confectioner sugar and sift it into the mixture. Once you're done realizing you're somehow worse at sifting than last time and you've made a mess all over your stovetop, whisk to combine until it forms into this caramel-like consistency of a frosting. While I'm still learning the science behind a lot of baking and cooking, you notice how it's super thin right here, and I think that's due to because the fact that there's way too much syrup in this mixture than there should be because I didn't let it reduce long enough. I didn't let it boil for too long at too high of a temperature, and as I should have, so it didn't reduce to the half a cup, and I instead wound up with a more thinner, like caramel-like thing. And what I didn't get footage of as it cooled was that it was still sticky to touch because of all the syrup that was still in the mixture. So it kind of became a silly putty like texture to it. As it cooled, it was sticking to my hands, but not actually sticking, and just kind of becoming a stretchy top to the frosting. Because of that, it wound up becoming more of like a syrup sauce that goes on brownies that thickens as it cooled. But I heat it up in the microwave for about 15-20 seconds, and it melts, and it's really good to eat with a fork.